Well, good evening and welcome to another episode of the Terry McGriff Show. Oh my God, it's been a wonderful week so far. It's my birthday week. So happy to be on this planet another year. I'm going to have a great, outstanding show for us today. I'm with my illustrious co-host, Andre L. Sullivan, sitting over there in the beautiful iHeart Studios. Andre, how's it going, my friend?
I'm good, man. First of all, happy early birthday. You
Thank
turn
you,
the big
sir.
5-3 tomorrow.
Yes, sir.
It's all good. It's up. What's up?
Man, I'm telling you, man, with all the COVID and all the things going on, man, I'm just happy to be here. Still got very good health. Things are going well. No, all my levels are perfect. So I'm doing good. It's good to be in there getting this weight off of you, hitting that gym, eating right. So it'll help. It'll help and keeping that COVID away from me. So, man, it's just good. So, just happy. I'm just another exciting week. We've got a lot of stories coming out with the other projects I'm doing with the Laces Out. We just announced also the Legacy Bowl for the Women's Tackle Football League. Had that press release just released a few days ago. So things are going. We got a lot of events coming up. Going on. Obviously, a lot of stuff going on here in the city of Jacksonville. It's just a fun time to be alive, fun time, even with stuff going on with COVID, people still trying to get things together, but it's just great. And we got a great talk show here, man. Just a lot of stuff going on. I mean, you think about it, got Match Madness getting ready to get started. You got, free agency getting ready to get started. People doing things with the draft. Obviously, the draft will be a different show, kind of like what it was last year, but there's no combine this year, which is kind of strange that we're not going to have another combine. So it's going to be interesting how that stuff works. Just a lot of interesting goes on. So we'll jump into these topics real quick. We're going to talk once again. We're going to talk about March Madness and has the excitement gone away? It doesn't seem like it has been in years past, and I think a lot of that got to do with COVID. That's just my opinion. And then, what is happening to the sport of boxing? I was looking at it a couple of weeks ago. And I'm like, wait a minute, this ain't the same as when I grew up, and it's just not the same hype as it was. Also, we're going to get into a little bit of free NFL free agency. Obviously, we heard about today that J.J. Watt signed with the Arizona Cardinals, and it's going to be free. And there's a couple other guys that are coming on the free agent market that's going to be very interesting. We'll kind of delve into that a little bit. And lastly, we're going to talk about something that I want to really that I have a little bit of care for. I got a couple of friends that do this. That's how specialized training has improved athletes' performance, but has it also hurt the multi-sport athlete? We saw a video basically with Drew Brees coming out a couple of days ago. So we're going to delve into that at the end of the show. So let's get started with this, man. How about that? Let's talk about this. Let's go into this March Madness. I know it's the beginning of March. I've watched a little bit of basketball, which I hadn't watched a lot this year. But it just seems like it's not been the same this year ever since last year with the COVID. I know I haven't been able to get into it a lot, but it just doesn't seem like even the same, spark. And it doesn't been a lot of people talking about it like normal. And I just wondering my take of it is just, I think because of COVID, and it was one of the first sports to go down, and it kind of ended at a whimper last year. This year, it hasn't really started up with the bang. And, I looked around, I'm like, some of these teams got a rank pretty high, but their records are not that dominant. So it's just, to me, it just seemed like you got a bunch of mediocre, and it just didn't have the excitement. Now, maybe I'm wrong, and so I want to get your opinion, because people I know and talk, but we just haven't really been excited about it. Maybe when the brackets come out, we'll probably get excited.
And I think you just hit on it. The brackets haven't even been released. You have a lot of regular season champs that just got announced. Actual conference tournaments have yet to begun. And we're at the point now where it's the waiting period. NAIA just finished their conference championships, and then you have Division II and all that stuff getting rounded up here. So it's a waiting game.
Mm-hmm.
And to answer your question directly, is the excitement about it? No, the excitement hasn't been there yet because it's not here yet.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing they ESPN, SEC Network, ACC Network, all of your sports venues that we're really hearing it from haven't had a chance to get you excited yet. Um, and on top of all of that, it's a different game
Mm-hmm.
than what we're used to seeing in the past. Limited fan participation, if any. A lot of teams, are playing in that semi bubble. So, I get it. It's not the game that you've been seeing years and years in the past, but it's still basketball. You still got to put the ball in the cup, and you still got to be the best team that day. So, regardless of that being said, NCAA is still going to continue. You got good teams like Baylor, who sits at 18-1, Michigan, who sits at 18-1. Don't sleep on Florida State, even though they lost to North Carolina here a couple of days ago. March Madness will still be March Madness. We got, quote unquote, robbed of that last year, but don't let that stop you from enjoying the game.
It is those factors. You don't have a lot of no brackets are out right now. So for me, that might be a little bit of it. It's just I think more than anything, there the lack of fans being there. It doesn't seem like it's intimate like it was. It doesn't have the crowd noise when you turn on and watch a game. So a little bit of that, it does. It is just the changing of the times. You just got to maybe get used to it. But I think you're right. When the media does kind of pick it up, we'll probably start feeling it, and then people start talking brackets. But I'm just so used to it being knowing that it is the first part of March. We've already kind of been into it a couple of days, so it kind of felt a little bit strange. That's why I was talking about, like, okay, we don't really see March Madness the way it is, and you give the blame mostly to COVID on that. But once it starts, it starts. I just miss the underdogs going in. I miss all the little small schools getting in there to try to upset. You're always looking for that one big upset, and you didn't get that last year. So hopefully you'll have somebody that comes out of the woodwork and beats one of the big dominant teams. But that was the other thing. My point was it just didn't seem a little bit like there was really a great dominant team. You didn't have a lot of news focus on this great college basketball team that normally it's everybody's dominating, that they're already saying, okay, these guys are going to make it to the Final Four. So it's a little bit different this year. So we'll see how it goes. And I'll just wait until those brackets come out and maybe my feelings will change on that. Well, let's jump on into another thing we want to find out what's going on with. It's a sport of boxing. Um, I was with a buddy watching just basically a lot of amateur boxing for fundraising and charitable events. And it seemed like it was in Madison Square Garden. No, excuse me, not Madison Square Garden. It was in the Staples Center. And I was watching it with him on YouTube. And it was a packed house. I'm like, wait a minute, so much for COVID restriction. He's like, man, these things have been huge lately because they've been raising a lot of money for charities and stuff like that. And, there was a who's who of stars at that. And I'm like, well, what happened to the boxing, the normal boxers? And it just seems like there is no real big fan base for boxing the way it was. It seems like it's gone the way of the dinosaur, pretty much. They're still out there, but it's not as huge. I mean, you got to think about it. When Conor McGregor makes you a big event with I forgot who it was, Floyd Mayweather,
Mm-hmm.
and they were both basically past their prime. And then you got Mike Tyson, having an event, and he's past his prime, and they're making big fights. And you don't even know who the normal fighters of the day are. I can't tell you who's the world heavyweight champion. I can't tell you if there's even an undisputed world heavyweight champion right now, because it's just they're not a mainstream sport. When I was growing up, the heavyweight champion was the heavyweight boxing champion of the world was probably, if not the most famous athlete, one of the most famous athletes on the planet, not just in the country. So it's changed. I remember, obviously the last of those good old boys was, talking about Mike Tyson and all those guys back then. And that was basically late 90s, early 2000s. Now you really don't know who the world heavyweight champion is. Some of the smaller boxers, you might know a little bit, but it's just died off. And I think MMA has a lot to do with that, but I think a lot of it has to do with pay-per-view, and that you can't really follow a guy from his career anymore. It's just different times. So I'd like to hear what you think about it.
Well, hear me out. I'm not coming for you. I just want you to know that.
I got you.
But what year
Remember,
were you
I
born?
am turning 53.
I know. What year were you born?
I was born in 1968.
1968. Okay, think about this for a second. Even before you were born, the folklore of the gladiator itself got around by word of mouth. People saw someone fight in maybe the Roman Colosseum or whatever Greek amphitheater you had, and the story preceded the man, if you will. And so fast forward to 1960s, how news got around was through radio, and TV was at somewhat of its beginning stages, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And they say video killed the radio star. That's an entire song, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember that song.
The phone probably killed the TV star, if you will. Our news and how we receive it is vastly different from not only 1960, but
68, 70.
68, but it's different from 2019 or 2020, if you will. And so, yeah, boxing isn't a bigger sport as it was. People aren't attracted to boxing. One, it's not a blood sport like it probably might have been in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. You have a whole UFC fighting where there's a chance somebody might lose a tooth or an ear or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we as humans, unfortunately, are a bloodthirsty people. And when we see a sport that somebody might get killed in, will attract you more than somebody who typically, just might have a head injury. So, yes, the sport of boxing has diminished in some way, mostly because it's a sport that, granted, not everybody can do it at a high level, but everyone can do it. Everyone can't play football. They can try, but everyone. There's only 53 people on an NFL roster.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone can't play baseball. They can try, but that's what they got T-ball and softball for. Everyone can't play basketball, but they can try. That's what they got AAU, rec ball, parks, and all that stuff for.
Mm-hmm.
And I can go so on and so forth, but everyone can't be a UFC fighter.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I'm not stepping in the octagon with no one. I will shoot. I'm letting you know that right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, you have a sport like that is possibly the closest thing to boxing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what anyone say. There's nothing that's close to football.
Right.
You got rugby, but football is football. Basketball is basketball.
Mm-hmm.
Hockey is hockey. Baseball is baseball. There's something that, in so many fashion, mirrors something else. They're going to go to the alternate.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to go to the bloodthirsty thing. You're going to go to the thing that gets your gears going. And so, and on top of that, let's go to another action. There's no stars in boxing no more. The last kind of star we had was Floyd Mayweather, as you mentioned. And he's nearing the end of his career. He's still doing small fights here and there, but his heyday is in his past. We don't have Muhammad Ali's or Rocky Balboa's anymore. You know what I mean? So
yeah, even no Apollo Creeds, none of that.
None of that. And boxing is one of those sports now where Joe Schmo can go put on a pair of gloves, train for maybe a week or so, get into a ring and raise $1,000. And I don't think the sport has completely turned into that, but a good faction of it has. And so to keep the sport alive, that's what they've done. I mean, yes, you still have your welterweights, your heavyweight, lightweights, and heavyweight champions of the world, but the draw, there's the only reason why there's a pay-per-view, because the draw is to that. No one's turning on the TV every weekend to see boxing. There's no boxing channel. you know, and so that's just what it is. We're not telling our little boys and our little girls, let's go sign up for boxing.
Mm-hmm.
We're saying let's go sign up for football, baseball, basketball, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's just where the state of the sport is right
Yeah, you're right. You're right. And unfortunately, being an old school guy with that, loving the boxing, loving those great fights, loving those excitement of going, watching those guys go blow for blow, watching them have the nice strategies against each other. Obviously people remember, Ali with the rope a dope, and all those different strategies of those guys, the way they fought, and those were epic battles and things for the history book. And people still, and at my age, still talk about those type of things. And you go and you'll watch some of those old videos and you're like, wow, that was pretty smart what he did there. It's just not the same anymore. And I'm not sure, just the way society has totally moved on. So, hopefully it'll make a comeback with the right athlete, with the right persona, and enough people to challenge him to make the fight game interesting again. But as of right now, I just don't see it. I think it's gone the route of the MMA, and it's probably going to be like that for the rest of mankind. So we'll just see how it works out. Hopefully, boxing will kind of make some type of comeback. The other thing I will say before we change the subject is, one of the things I think they made a mistake on was really following the boxers from the Olympics when they left the Olympics, especially if the guy won a gold medal. And that was really your springboard into professional boxing, through the Golden Gloves all the way through the Olympics, winning the gold there, and then springboard. And you already came in with a ready-made fan base, and the media was able to push it through the thing. But it hasn't happened right now. So we'll move on, and hopefully it gets better one of these days. Well, let's talk about a little bit of NFL free agency. It's getting that time of the month of March, 2nd of March. I think free agency will officially be open on the 14th. But, for those guys such as your J.J. Watts, there's a few other free agents that were released early that are now off in the open market. It's a pretty interesting time. I think Houston decided that they were going to give him a chance to go out there and pick and choose his team instead of trading him. And he decided that he's going to go back to one of his old defensive coordinators and coaches and play with the Arizona Cardinals. He's back with DeAndre Hopkins again and Chandler Jones. That'll make a pretty good bookend pair that they have. But even though they can move, him up and down the defensive line, he can play inside and outside. But it's going to be pretty interesting. And they got a young group of core players over there that maybe he thought that they can make a move. I saw a little bit of his press conference where he was talking about, they have the young dynamic quarterback going into his third year, obviously DeAndre Hopkins and a few of the other offensive stars they had, and then some of the young defensive stars. So he's thinking that they can make that push. I just was under the impression that he was really wanting a chance to go with a Super Bowl contender. And I don't even know with him being there, I think we spoke about this last week. Well, he's going to make them a Super Bowl contender. If he does, good for them. I just don't know if they still have enough. I know they got a couple of guys. I can't remember the young man that they drafted from Clemson last year. Hopefully he'll make that big step because he can play damn near Isaiah Simmons. He can play, safety, linebacker. He can rush the passer. So with those guys and Buda Baker and a couple of those guys they got over there, they got to keep the cornerback though. They got to keep their number one corner locked up. I think he's a free agent. So we'll see. We'll see if they can make that run. But there's a lot of other interesting free agents that's coming out there. A couple of them that have been, linked to the Jaguars. Obviously, there's a rumor Alex Smith is going to be released soon. Will he come to the Jaguars and be with his old college coach? Obviously, there's talk of Allen Robinson maybe making a return. He said he's open to coming back to Jacksonville. They're talking about Samuels, the kid from the Carolina Panthers, that he'd be able to fill that slot role, and he's been undervalued, underused. So it's quite a few guys. There's some defensive linemen that's out there. Leonard Williams comes to mind because he's a local guy. He's from Daytona Beach, which is just down the road, and so there's been some rumors that he would like to come closer to home. So that'd be interesting to see if he'd be able to come play with the Jaguars. There's plenty of cap space in Jacksonville, but there's a few other teams that are out there that have plenty of cap space. And like we discussed before, are these guys want mostly money, or they want to get a chance to go for a contender? Obviously, everybody wants a little bit of both, but we'll see.
I mean, listen, I told you, you know, someone like J.J. Watt. I mean, yes, a Super Bowl ring looks really, really cool, on your finger. But that 32 mil for 2 years looks even better in a bank account.
Mm-hmm.
And I can buy a replica Super Bowl ring. But yeah, man. I mean, you got a lot of good free agents out here. Of course, before mentioned Allen Robinson, Leonard Williams, Samuels, who brought up would be a good slot guy for the Jaguars. But whether it's the Jacksonville Jaguars or not, this free agency is a little different than a lot others because a lot of NFL franchises are in win now mode.
Mm-hmm.
And for those listening, what I mean by that is they want to win now. Like they're
Mm-hmm.
not trying to rebuild. They're not trying to be patient and wait for the next season or the season after that, and so on and so forth. They're trying to win the Super Bowl next. They want to be next. And so Trent Williams is still on the board for free agency. Justin Simmons, safety who played at Denver, he's still on the board for free agency. Chris Goodwin,
We've
I'm
rethought
sorry,
every
Chris
step you
Godwin,
take to get into a new infinity. From online
Shaquille Barrett, still on the board. Aaron Jones, Taylor Morton, Brandon Sheriff, Bud Dupree.
Love me some Bud Dupree.
That guy's still on the board. Kenny Galloway, Jadeveon Clowney, who's only 28 years old,
Are you serious?
is a free agent.
He seems like he's been playing forever.
That's how good he is. But yeah, man, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yannick Ngakwe is a free agent.
Mm-hmm.
So listen, Will Fuller, Matt Milano, Jameis Winston, man. Juju Smith-Schuster is a free agent. I could go on and on, but what I do want to caution a lot of NFL teams is to look at tape and don't look at what they have done, but just look at what they're doing. Because, what worked for Adam might not work for Steve. And I say that what might work for Pittsburgh might not work here in Jacksonville, right? What works over there in Oakland might not work over there in Tennessee. And so be mindful of that as you draft people. And I want the fans to realize something too. It's like when you're playing Uno. When you put a card down, remember you still got something in your hand. And if you don't have one card left, that means you still got to play something. So don't be trying to play 5 steps ahead of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I think particularly teams like Jacksonville Jaguars, those Dallas Cowboys, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Look at what you got in the locker room before you just start reaching for those other cards in the deck.
Shiny pieces.
Yeah, because everything that glitters ain't gold.
Ain't that the truth?
Sorry, J.J. Watt.
You're right about that. I mean, and I just, while you're talking, I just kind of glanced over and just was looking at that free agency list. There's a lot of big names out of there, and there's a lot of young big names that are played a lot of good football, and there could be some really good turnover. I was looking here. Who I didn't realize he was that old was T.Y. Hilton was available, and you had Ronald Darby, who's one of your better cornerbacks in the league. Only at the age of 26, 27 years old. You're talking about, people that are out there. You can go out there if you had the right organization that knew what pieces that will fit right. You could take your team like just using the Jaguars as an example. They could be a potential playoff contender by drafting right and getting the right free agents in the building. They could go from being 1-15 to 11-5 in a matter of month in the next season with the right people, because there's a lot of great players out there. I didn't even realize David Andrews was a free agent. He's only 29 years old. He's one of the better centers, and I'm sure he's looking like the rest of them, looking for an exit out of New England if he can get paid and go somewhere where he knows he's going to be the starter. But that's the way it's going to. I mean, I'm not talking about the names that everybody really knows a lot. I'm give you an example. Another guy I think is really good that's undervalued is Mike Hilton. He was not really. He's a very, very good player. He's got there. I didn't realize Melvin Ingram. He's just a little bit over 30, but he's a free agent, and you didn't think that he'd even make it a free agent because he's been such a productive pass rusher. But that's just the changing of the times. And I mean, KJ Wright's another one. He's up there in age, but come on, who you just didn't think these guys would be out here. Another one who I think you can get of age, and I didn't realize because he's a little bit older, which I didn't know, was Marvin Jones. He's a pretty productive, bigger wide receiver. So it's a lot of good guys out there that are going to be out there. Wow, it just looks like, and Sammy Watkins is a free agent again. I mean, it's a time that you can really, really make yourself a better team if you're really selective and you get the right guys in your building. So I'm hoping the Jaguars to do that, and there's a couple other teams out there. And I also just going to be aware, because I know a couple of people have been talking, the Bucs have been really, really shrewd about bringing in some new, fresh guys that, they're going to try to keep a lot of the guys that they want, but they're going to be able to bring in some guys that they think that's going to give them some extra help. There's been some talk about bringing in a couple of the higher rated corners that they have they in the free agency market that come in and help them on the backside, which if you keep what they already had and then you bring in some better corners, that's going to be really, really scary. They were already a really good defense against the run. Anyway, if you make them really good against the pass with that offense and all those skill players they got, it's not out the realm of possibility that they're going to repeat go back to the Super Bowl. Kansas City is like the same way, but it's a really, really interesting time. And that's the reason I want to discuss it, because there was such, unlike other years, a lot of good young free agents. I mean, just here's if you need a good backup right now, who would you bring in? Who could you say right out now will do a better job as a backup, as like Ryan Fitzpatrick or Jacoby Brissett? They're great guys that you can bring into your locker room that will be a good backup. I wouldn't be surprised to see Jacoby Brissett back in New England. It would not surprise me, because he knows the system. He had a little bit of success there. He's been a seasoned veteran. He wouldn't cost him nuts. So yeah, that wouldn't surprise me to see him end up in New England.
Agreed.
Yeah. So let's go on to our very, very last topic. I mean, this is something that I want to talk about a while now, and because I see it all here locally, especially at the youth high school level. Obviously, you know what goes on when these guys getting ready for these different combines, whether it's the NBA, NFL, whatever. The specialized training that these athletes are getting now, no matter what the sport. I mean, the technology is light years ahead of when I was in my 20s. I mean, 30 years have passed, and the technology and the nutrition and the science behind these guys being able to perform has just made the game just awesome. And I mean, it's and also long preserved careers. Look at Tom Brady. His TB12. He's plans to play till he's 45, and he plays like he's in his mid 30s. So hey, who knows how long he can play? And I mean, you got some of these kids now. I went to a couple of high schools, and you got some of these young men, and they're 15, 16 years old, and their bodies as if they're 22, 23 years old. They're like grown men, and the young ladies too. And I'm like, look at the training, look at the nutrition, stuff that we didn't have now. But what I also wanted to talk about, it was a lot of the people, because they're doing such specialized training, that's kind of taken away the kids, especially at the high school level, being multi-sports athletes. You still find a few, but it's hardly like that now. You could try to get a kid, say, hey, I'm a football player. Well, you want to go play basketball? You're a great athlete. Come help us on the basketball team. Then you can go back to, no, I'm just sticking to this. I'm like, I just find it strange. And I think the specialization and the people are trying to get them to do that has kind of really hurt these kids and hurt the games in a way that there's no Bo Jacksons like it was anymore, and Deion Sanders. That's what I'm looking for.
Well, first, let me say, I don't personally think it's hurting the game.
Mm-hmm.
If anything, I think it helps it. Just because for the first reason, I now know that the people in this locker room or on this particular practice field want to be there. Their mind is not anywhere else but here, and I'm okay with that. Granted, we don't have those superstar double, triple, quadruple athletes like we had with Deion Sanders or Bo Jackson, or go back to even Jim Brown. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, yeah, it takes away from having those extra letters on your jacket when you graduate from high school. But I think, one, the athlete is okay with that. And then more importantly, the student is okay with that because I think we tend to forget that in high school, in college, student they are student athletes, and the student part goes before the athlete. So if I have an athlete who is a one sport guy or woman that is solely driven by one sport, I'm okay with that because what else they should be driven by is their academic career. And so, yes, you have specialized training taking away from those dual athletes. And granted, like you said, it gives it takes away the thunder and lightning from certain people. There are certain individuals who are going to do that. I'm sorry, but this generation that is in school now is not built for multitasking. And if I could take one aspect of their character away, that would be it. Um, and I'm okay with that. So if that means we're going to have more specialized training, means we're going to have more time with athletes taking on one sport, I'm game.
Okay, that's a good perspective. I was thinking of it more from a parent's perspective and more from an experience perspective. And I don't think it's a right or a wrong issue. I just think and I think it's a life experience issue. I'm all about having as many experiences. And then one thing I always believe that playing multi sports always helps you play the other sports better. There's something you can take away from one game that will help you with your other game. Reason I tell them we always try to recruit the basketball player, especially to play the receiver spots, tight end, wide receiver, because they understand spacing. They're high end eye coordination. We're always good as far as being able to catch the ball, being able to find the open spots when it's coming running routes and getting in the zone. We love those type of guys because they understood that from playing basketball. Baseball, we love the baseball, especially pitchers because they understand the mechanics of throwing a ball. They understand velocity, understand how to put places in space. So those games taught those sports taught them other things that will help them in football. Obviously, football taught them a little bit more, like on basketball, another toughness, physical toughness, being able to endure through a little bit more pain, those type of things. So I always thought that playing those different sports gave you a different perspective that you can take to the other sport that you played. And it made you, if you were that type of, alpha male or alpha female athlete, it just made you better on when you went to the other realm because you can take something out of that realm that will help you even better in the other realm. So I kind of miss those days. But I mean, I'm all for getting for the training. It does build dedication to a sport to make sure that you're the absolute best that you can be at that sport. But it also if you pick wrong, you kind of put yourself in that and open yourself to opportunity. I actually could be better over here than if I'd have tried that. So I give you example Tebow. I mean, Tebow, yeah, obviously a great quarterback in college, didn't do good in the pros, but I think he thought he could be a really good Major League Baseball player if you stuck to it. So he tried to go back, and he recently retired because he couldn't make it from the game. Who's to say? That was one of the things that was in the back of his mind. He thought he could have made it in the major league had he had stuck with it instead of not playing football. And I think the same goes with the quarterback with the who's now with the Cardinals. He was a first round draft pick in baseball.
I get you, and to that point, you got a point. A lot of different sports kind of carry over into skill sets, but doesn't specific sport training do that? And I think that's what a lot of parents are getting to. You know, I think we as learning adults, I use that term for me loosely. Um, I think we don't take into consideration rest for youth.
Mm-hmm.
When you were growing up, and even to when I was growing up, you don't need the rest. You're young, if you will, and we overlook that. And having taking a child's off season away, it does something. And having them do that specific training during a specific time and then allowing them to be a child, I think is one of the most vital things that has been overlooked in sports, especially at the grade school level. When you get to college, granted, in certain older adults' eyes, you're still a child, but they're doing a lot of adulting. They're doing a lot of adulting. So while they can be a child, I'd rather them do that. And this is personal opinion, of course. I'd rather them be one sport athlete, train hard with that one sport, and then have some time to just to do wrong. Not necessarily, go crazy, but just get it wrong for a little bit. And if when we take away that, and here's the thing, and just me being in coaching, the moment you take away the option for certain children, and not all child, our children are built differently. But the moment you take away the option for an athlete to have space where they can just be a child, you then create space for them to just mess up and do something crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's let them be kids. I get it. You want them to have that cross training to a certain extent, and you want them to get more active. There's a lot that Phil doesn't get enough credit from playing those team sports that they learn that they can take into a totally different aspect of their life. But let's let them be kids, and the more that they are getting to enjoy their childhood, the less they can screw up in their adulthood.
Yeah, and I agree, and that's where you preempted me, and that was going to be my other point with that specialized training. When I was talking about it, yeah, the specialized training, you play let's take football for example. You play football and you play your season, and then you take maybe a week or two off, and then you go right into your specific training, your drills for all that, and then you're not necessarily not taking time off to be a kid. You're training just to get better at that specific. So if you want to be a quarterback, you work on that, but you're not getting any downtime because now you're going to a 7-on-7 camp that these guys recommend that you go on. You be in this 7-on-7 team to work on your passing skills where you're not getting hit. So you're not really getting a downtime because you're not getting away from playing ball. You may be out of pads, but you're still doing that training and all that other stuff that's not giving you any time away. And it's not differently necessarily with a different group of kids or a different group of people. You're still in that same circle. With playing basketball, now you're with the kids that normally, guy that doesn't play football will be playing basketball. And then you're with this guy that play baseball, and then you get those different experiences. And they demand the body in different ways. Baseball is nowhere near as physically demanding, even though it's a physically demanding sport, but it's not near as physically demanding as football would be, as far as on the contact on your body. But it also gives you some break time from the environment of that sport you have to unhinge and kind of decompress from what you've done already. You're constantly going back to evaluate your last season. You're doing this, you're working on the footwork, or you're working on this specific thing that can make you better. So you don't, like you said, you don't get that chance to be a kid. Where if you would have probably played a different sport, you got a whole different coach, you got a whole different mindset, maybe, depending on what's going on at that school, and give you a chance to decompress from that sport, then go back to train to it. And it allows those kids to be kids. But it also, going to what you're saying, nothing can replace reps. And I get what you're saying. They can train certain specific things, but if you're a basketball player, you're out there, you're doing it in the day. They're working on that in a training facility, but it doesn't necessarily become ingrained in your subconscious. You learn that skill playing basketball that you can take on the football field, or how to get open as a tight end or a receiver when you're running against the zone, because you're used to playing basketball, because basketball is more of an intimate sport as far as being quickness and looking to get to your spots. You can take that football and it translates directly on a football field, what makes you even better. That's why if you notice a lot of guys that came out in the NFL at the tight end spots, and even some of them that in the wide receiver position that played basketball, they have a knack for being able to getting to the open spot, especially against the zone. Some of those guys know how to play, how to go get the ball when they're tightly contested with another defensive back. And those things come from playing those other sports. You don't necessarily focus on that in those team specific drills. I learned those when I played basketball. I learned that when I played football. And that's what I like. That's one of the things about it. Not saying either one is good or bad. I just think the experience of having basically what we all done. We decided that we're gonna give them a chance to get away from the sport that we can, also get a chance to be a kid, be around a little bit different environment, be around some different people, and give them a little bit more life experience. That's my only point with that. All right, let's before we get out of here this day and this week, I want to just once again reiterate for you guys, if you enjoy our content, please like and subscribe to our channel. We do this for you. We do this for your entertainment. Also, please just go and patronize our sponsors of Team Sportswear to Watch, Team Sportswear Direct, Watch Game Film, and She-Car. Great companies will do all these great things for you. She-Car is a great place if you're looking for a car. Obviously, Team Sportswear Direct if you're looking for promotional sports apparel. Watch Game Film, by far the best film sharing platform on the market that you want to try to share film with, monitor your players, look at their performance, and they share with Huddle. So if you get a chance, just go check these companies out. Just go patronize them once again. Give a shout out to our guys. We're getting ready to come up. They're Laces Out website. The Laces Out Foundation is holding a camp for the young ladies for specialists, kicking, punting, and long snapping. If you're interested in that, please go to lacesoutfoundation.com. The part of the proceeds will be going to help a worthy cause called the DEMP Project, which is helping eradicate the scourge of human trafficking and the sex trade. Please go out there. Please go online, support these organizations, and we're doing these things to help our communities across the world and across our great country. So until next week, I want to say from my co-host, Andre L. Sullivan, our producer, the great Granville Moody, and myself, Terry McGriff. We'll see y'all next week on the Terry McGriff Show, and y'all be blessed out there.